Hey guys, Omni here. We are back with DC's Legends of Tomorrow. This is our penultimate episode before the season finale airs next week. So last week's episode was pretty fun. It concluded with Charlie joining her sisters in order to put the loom back together since everybody died in that zombie outbreak. So if you haven't seen this week's episode, be sure to tune out and come back once you have, because I'm going to be diving into some spoilers. So here we go. So we get to our first look at this whole new world that they have built together. The Fates seem to be ruling everything in this kind of communist, bleak, dreary, gray life that they've pretty much got everybody bent to put under their heel, just slaving away at various odd jobs and blinded and manipulated by television. So we get Mona back in this. It's the first time she's been back for a little while. She's working at this job where she's like rewriting history. She's like documenting time so that they can guarantee that the timelines are staying okay. And then you get this screen that pops up with Atropos, who's like, all right, that guy, it's time for you to die. And cuts his thread. He just dies on the spot. I don't know if he was like, that's what they're going to fired. But it was just like, well, that's what they're doing now. So Mona leaves her job. On her way home, she comes across Gary, who is on the streets with a just doomsaying, preaching to the crowds, the bystanders, that the world is wrong. He doesn't know what is wrong, but the world is wrong. And he's like, recognizes Mona as she walks by, and he's like, do I know you? And she's like, ugh. And she just keeps on going. She goes home, flicks on her TV, and that's when pretty much the shtick of this episode goes through. So I'm going to go ahead and get to the kind of a beat at the end. Clotho, in order to save our friends, our legends, our gang, made a deal with her sisters in order to make this new world, control this new world, but also save them. She has placed them inside of their own streaming service where they are putting out these television shows to the masses. Each one kind of playing off of some of the things they said at the round table at the end of the last episode, some of the things they really hoped for in the end, like, Mick wanted to be a criminal, then wanted to have certain lives, always wanted to win, blah, 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 something. Basically, she wrote them into these TV series that would have best suited some of their ideal dreams should they ever stop being legends, or where they would go on from there. Just to keep them kind of satiated and under this kind of spell, but safe, because ultimately she just wanted to save their lives because her sisters wanted them dead. So rather than doing that, she got them to convince them to stay alive by putting them in this network to satiate and have them actually be used to kind of sedate the rest of the world through the television programmings. So we get our first introduction with Nate, Bayrod, and Zari in a little loose parody on Friends, almost getting the kitchen set up pretty accurate. The fridge was pretty close. The rest of it was a little like happenstance. Like, they're called Ultimate Buds, and of course there's the pot leaf in the title. Bayrod, I don't know. They don't really go into like the archetypes for any of them, except Nate comes in and he makes a lot of Joey and Chandler references, but he comes in saying that he just got back from Starley City auditioning for a show called Arrow, and he got the role of Robin Hood of Locksley, and he's got a little crossbow. So a nice little lovely nod to Arrow. And I gotta say, I rewatched the first episode of The Flash the other day just for nostalgia, and man, I miss Stephen Amell. I miss Oliver so much, because when Barry ran to him, I weeped just seeing them reunite, what that used to be. The glory days. Anyway, Zari is just kind of walking around. This is, of course, the normal Zari, the new timeline Zari, the one we've been getting to know here recently. She's walking around as they're going through the little like sitcom shtick. She bumps into her totem, which somehow releases old Zari's spirit from it, in which she's able to possess new Zari, and therefore breaking the fourth wall. She's able to hear the laugh tracks every time something happens, and she starts trying to figure out a way out. Of course, Nate and Bayrod are just kind of confused. She has a moment where she's like, Nate! And like, you feel it, not like it hit me. And then she sees Bayrod, and she's like, that's the first time she has seen him alive since her original life. Immediately, she's trying to figure out how to get out, and they're like, what's this door? And there's just this door kind of off camera where they would have normally been, which actually, if in Friends, would have been Rachel's room. But it would have, she basically uses the totem and blows it down, and you see like the static. And meanwhile, Mona's just like, what is going on watching her show? So they cross through this static barrier that's between this wall set, and they enter into another show. And instead of Downton Abbey, it's High Castle Alley or whatever it was. I can't remember what it was. It was some play on Downton Abbey. Constantine is a butler. Astra and her mother are the heads of the mansion, which is John's mansion where they're shooting this. And it's just this whole like high class English kind of style life with John being their servant and at their every whim. Stupid cat is like scratching at my door. Anyway, so Zari and them, everybody shows up there. They of course get their own like palette swap to fit in, and they're just trying to convince them of what's going on. Eventually, they get through to John, and he's like, I've been cursed by dark spirits. And she's like, that's really who you are. And they get him to conjure a spell, which actually transports them out. It displaces them into Star Trip, not Star Trek. A little parody with Sarah and Ava, who helm the ship, scouring the universe, winning every day, getting their kind of dream as Clotho saw fit to try to ease them in a life in which they would never lose. And oh gosh, it was hilarious because when the gang shows up, they're in a Klingon ship, but they're called Gromulans in this. Or maybe I'm getting it wrong. I don't know. I don't watch Star Trek. I've only seen like the J.J. Abrams films, and I know that's a sin. I've seen First Contact, but all that aside, they are speaking some garbled version of Klingon, so they can't be understood. And Ava and Sarah are about to shoot them, and someone decides to turn on the translator, and then they just eventually talk it out. And they end up getting them beamed onto their ship, and everything goes crazy, and they are poking around. They're like, what's going on? And then Ava, of course, because this is like these alternate dimension reality things is something that happens a lot in Star Trek anyway. So Ava's character is a Vulcan who speaks with logic, and she's like, based on everything happening here and your interactions with us, you must be our crew from an alternate timeline or universe or reality, and just buys right into it. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. And they work it out. Then they hear this transmission, and it's the Mr. Parker theme. And then this giant hand reaches up and grabs the little toy prop ship and brings it down, and now they're in Mr. Parker's cul-de-sac. Unfortunately, sadly, it's, of course, not Ray, but it's actual Mr. Parker. And they start working it through, and they're still, everybody except for Zari is still confused about everything going on. Charlie comes in on, also, sorry, kind of skipped a beat there. Mona finally sees what's going on and is like, oh, wow, maybe that Gary person was right. She goes to find him, and then they go to break into Clotho Productions to figure out what's going on with the screens. And they break in there and find the crew and everything that's going on. And they're like, we got to help them. And they start messing with the script somehow and write it that the legends start to remember who they are. Of course, Clotho shows up, Charlie shows up. He's like, stop it. No, if they remember who they are, they're going to try to get out, and then my sister's going to want them dead. So she writes it in. She starts taking control of Mr. Parker to try to lull them back into security, to sedate them back into their lives or accept their position. And it kind of like uses her ability to rewrite reality and dip them back into the waters. They each end up getting teleported back to the shows that they were accustomed to. And she does go on to explain that, she chose these shows to try to accommodate their wishes that they spat off in the last episode, so she could try to keep them alive and keep them happy. But of course, the legends aren't going to accept that. Astra's realizing that even though this is her mom, it's just an image of her mom. It's not the real her. It's not her soul. She doesn't have any of her past life memories. It's just a specter of what she would want, and it's not really what she would do. There's this nice little moment too where John is starting just to concede, and he admits and confesses his ultimate sin and how she bargained her mother's life with Astra's own soul, and that's just something he can never make up. And that if he has to make it up to her to repent for doing that horrible thing to her and her family, that he is more than happy to live as a butler for all eternity, making sure that Astra is happy with her mother. And I like that moment. It's just like John being genuine for a hot minute. But Astra doesn't concede to that. She can't accept that this is like, even if it's like a veil of what she wants, it's not really her mother, that she just wants to go back. And then eventually everybody starts talking each other out of these things. And even though they were all sent back to the shows, they end up breaking out once again, kind of coming about on their own free will without any outside interference. Charlie still continuing to try to convince them to go back into their matrix. They make a blue pill reference in this as well. She's trying to like bribe them. So she was like, listen, you want Bayrod, you want your sister, the one you grew up with? Nate, you want the one you fell in love with? I'll just split her life thread, and she creates two Zari. So she separates them into the separate versions of Zari. And I'm wondering how long that's going to stay consistent, if it will. That can get a little messy. I want old Zari. I really want her back. Her and Nate, that dynamic, even if it got a little old for some people, it's the only one that's felt natural to me so far. And I just like that version of Zari better. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But they come out and just like, listen, we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna fight your sisters. We're gonna get shit done. Ugh. So yeah. I honestly can't remember how the episode ends at this point. They're all out. All their shows are now canceled. And I literally just finished watching this, and I cannot remember how it ended. I have no idea how this is going to close, how this is going to go wrap everything up. I don't know what this is going to do or lead in for Zari, where this is going to go. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen here. I know Mona just came in for this entire mess here. There's also Lita and her mother are some audience members throughout and coming in here and there. And oh, I forgot. And just before their show gets canceled, Rory finally shows up because he's been absent pretty much the entire episode, and he's just this glamorous version of Khan on the Star Trek episode. And it was just hilarious. But they all break out. It's like, and it's all said and done. I don't know. This was a weird episode, but I enjoyed it for the most part. I don't know. This season's been all over the place, man. And I don't know how next episode is going to go. I did see a little bit of the preview, and it does seem like pretty much everybody is in their actual super suits. So there's going to be a brawl. There's going to be something coming in the next week for the finale, at least. So I don't know. I'm really confused on how this is going to go. I thought this was interesting. I thought it was also very coincidental, or probably thought out, that he did like a Friends kind of spin here, since tomorrow is the official release of HBO Max and Friends is the big thing they're really kind of pushing on there. So that's like the interesting thing, or at least like that's the funny thing I saw, like them pushing this episode. It was always the Star Trek angle and then the Friends bit from this that they were kind of throwing out there, and the teasers and stuff like that, the thing I've seen other people sharing. So I did know that going into this episode a little bit, but I'm excited. I love Friends, so I dug that a little bit. It got me, at least. And the Star Trek bit, I thought that was hilarious. Overall, there's a lot of funny things in this, and I kind of get it. But overall, I don't know. I don't know how other people are going to feel about it. I found it enjoyable. I thought it was pretty funny. I know Legends is one of those shows that a lot of people are really on the fence about and very mixed over. So I don't know how this episode is going to play for everybody else, because it's probably one of the most out there ones, aside from, actually, I don't know. At least coming right to mind, this is one of the most out there ones, next to Bebo coming out and saving the day against the giant demon. But I don't know. What do you guys think of this episode? What were your thoughts on it? I enjoyed it. I would call this a guilty pleasure episode, because a lot of these types of shows I have watched. So I don't know. Sound off in the comments. I'm just rambling at this point. Let me know what you thought. We'll carry on the conversation after the video. My brain's dead. It's been a long day. I got a 4-day vacation coming up after this away from work. I'm not going anywhere, but I don't know what I'm even going to be doing with my time. Oh, but thankfully HBO Max is coming out, so I'm going to be binging some Friends. I'm going to be watching some DC EU films. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of stuff. Oh, they got Doctor Who. Again, I'm just being a walking advertisement for that stupid streaming service. Anyway, guys, that's it for today. I'll catch you guys next week with the finale of DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll catch you guys next time. Take care, everybody.